So, what happens when you try to fight nature with nature itself? Well, today we're diving into one of the most audacious, maybe one of the wildest ecological experiments ever attempted.
Now, that might sound like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this isn't fiction. It's the description of a real event, a plan so strange it sounds more like a rumor than reality.
So what was making the sand move? Get this, it was millions of rabbits. Yeah, you heard that right, a literal biological wave, a living tide, and it was all set in motion on purpose. And let's be super clear here. This wasn't some kind of accident. This wasn't an invasion. No, this was a strategy. A calculated, deliberate decision to release millions of animals into a very fragile ecosystem. And why? To fight a massive national threat, a desert that was just growing and growing.
And that right there brings us to the big question, the heart of this whole thing. When you try to harness the power of a living creature on this kind of scale, are you creating a genius solution? Or are you just unleashing a brand new monster that you have absolutely no way of controlling?
Okay, so to really get our heads around the logic behind this whole rabbit weapon idea, we actually need to zoom out a bit. We're going to look at another small mammal with its own really complicated reputation. We need to meet the pika.
There's this really key concept you got to know about called an ecosystem engineer. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. Think about beavers building dams, right? Or even earthworms just churning up the soil. These animals aren't just in their environment, they are actively changing it. They're reshaping the world around them, sometimes for the better and, well, sometimes for the worse.
And the plateau pika? Oh, it's a perfect example of this. It's this small, kind of cute social animal that just loves to burrow. Now, officially, it's labeled a pest because it eats the same stuff as farm animals. But, and this is a big but, a lot of scientists argue it's actually a keystone species. You know, one of those animals so important that the whole ecosystem could pretty much collapse without it. So, which one is it?
And that contradiction is the whole story, isn't it? It's the two faces of the pika. On the one hand, yeah, they're a pest. They compete for food, they can degrade the grasslands. But on the other hand, they're this vital keystone species. Those very same burrows that people complain about, they create homes for lizards and birds. All their activity actually boosts the nutrients in the soil and increases biodiversity. It's a classic ecological puzzle.
So how in the world do you solve a puzzle like that? Well, scientists decided to do something really clever. They basically drew up an ecological invoice. They wanted to literally calculate the costs and the benefits to see what the final balance sheet really looked like. You know, what's the bottom line on the pika?
All right, let's start with the costs, the debit column on that invoice. And the numbers here are pretty clear. In areas with pikas, the food available for livestock drops by almost 20%. And all that burrowing, it affects the topsoil, so water conservation goes down by 16%. These are not small numbers. These are real, significant downsides. But then you flip the invoice over to the benefits column, and whoa, the story gets complicated all over again. The pika's activity leads to a huge 29% increase in how much carbon the soil can store. That's a big deal for the climate. Biodiversity shoots up 15%. And critical soil nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, they go up by about 10%. It just perfectly illustrates the trade-off.
So you're probably asking the same thing I was. How can one little animal be so good and so bad at the exact same time? It seems impossible, right? Well, it turns out there's a really cool scientific theory that explains this exact kind of thing.
It's called the intermediate disturbance hypothesis. And the core idea is basically that a little bit of chaos is a good thing for an ecosystem. It's kind of like a Goldilocks principle. Too little disturbance and a couple of dominant species just take over everything. But too much disturbance and, well, nothing can survive. That sweet spot is a medium amount of disturbance, you know, like the constant burrowing of pikas. It creates new opportunities, it boosts diversity, and it keeps the whole system healthy and dynamic.
Okay, so now that we've got this idea of beneficial disturbance in our back pocket, let's circle back to where we started, those millions of rabbits in the desert. Because now we can actually start to see the logic, as risky as it was, behind this absolutely incredible plan.
To really get why they'd even consider this, you have to understand the sheer scale of the problem they were facing. We're talking about deserts that were expanding for decades, literally swallowing up farmland and threatening cities. The goal wasn't just to stop it, it was to reverse it. As one report put it, they wanted a historic shift, where the sand, not the people, was the one in retreat.
And it is crucial to understand that the rabbits were not the only plan, not even close. They were just one small piece of a massive national strategy. I mean, we're talking about planting billions of trees in the Green Great Wall, huge water conservation projects, protecting vast grasslands. This was an all-out effort.
So you see, the rabbits weren't some chaotic last-ditch effort. They were a specific tool deployed in controlled zones. The best way to think of them is like a low-cost, high-speed biological experiment. The goal was to see if their intermediate disturbance, their burrowing, their fertilizing, their seed spreading, could kickstart the restoration process way faster than machines or planting alone ever could.
So what does all this teach us? I think it shows that when it comes to ecology, things are rarely just black and white. You're not going to find any simple heroes or villains.
I mean, the pika is both a past and a keystone species. The rabbit is both a potential ecosystem engineer and a potential invasive monster. And that's the fundamental truth here, isn't it? When we try to use nature as a tool, it's never a simple fix. It's a bargain, a complicated set of trade-offs where you gain something, but you almost always lose something else.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question. We can calculate the costs and benefits, run controlled experiments, and study all the hypotheses we want. And reports on the rabbit experiment are mixed. Some areas show amazing signs of new life, while others are now just struggling with a new invasive species. It really forces us to ask, when we unleash millions of living creatures into an environment, who is ultimately in control? Us or them?